Claire's journey had reached a turning point. She had spent years helping women fix their marriages and, more recently, helping people escape dangerous relationships. Each case reminded her why she had started this work, to fight for justice and give people the strength to rebuild their lives. But with new opportunities came new risks. Claire had upgraded her methods, strengthened her security, and vowed to stay anonymous, knowing it was the only way to continue her mission safely. Still, the growing number of cases weighed on her, and the messages kept coming. Among the countless emails and messages, one had stayed on her mind: Jordan's. His simple invitation had made her wonder if it was time to let someone into her life. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew her work wasn't over. One rainy evening, Claire received a message on her blog. The sender's name was Toby, and he claimed to be 15 years old. His message was short but powerful. "I know you help people like my mom. Please, she needs your help. My dad is hurting her. She's scared to leave because she doesn't have money, and she doesn't want us to be left with him. I just want her to be safe. Please help us." Claire's heart sank as she read Toby's words. This wasn't like any case she had handled before. A 15-year-old boy, pleading for his mother's safety. It was both heartbreaking and infuriating. She knew she couldn't ignore it. Claire started by gathering background information. She traced Toby's message to a small town just outside Abuja. Using her cyber skills, she pulled up records on the family. She learned that Toby's father, Mr. Johnson, was a well-known businessman in the area, respected in public but a monster behind closed doors. Claire found reports of police visits to their home, complaints from neighbors about loud arguments, and even a few medical records indicating Toby's mother, Mrs. Johnson, had visited the hospital for accidental injuries. Claire also monitored the father's social media and bank activity, piecing together a pattern of control. Mr. Johnson had complete financial power over the family. Mrs. Johnson didn't have a job, and every penny she spent was tracked. She was entirely dependent on him, and he used this dependence to keep her trapped. With this information in hand, Claire crafted her approach. She started by reaching out to Toby anonymously, giving him specific instructions. "Toby, I want to help your mom, but we have to do this carefully. I need you to talk to her, show her this message, and let her know that there is a way out. I can help her get a safe place to stay and make sure you and your siblings are taken care of. But she needs to trust me." Toby shared the message with his mother. At first, Mrs. Johnson was skeptical. Who was this anonymous helper, and how could she possibly keep them safe from her husband? But when Toby showed her the bruises on his arms and begged her to consider, she began to listen. Claire followed up with another message, providing detailed steps for Mrs. Johnson. She shared examples of women she had helped anonymously, explaining how they were now living better lives. "I know you're scared. I know you feel trapped. But you're not alone. I have the resources to get you a new home, enroll your children in school, and help you learn skills to support yourself. You don't have to do this alone, and you don't have to stay in this pain." To convince Mrs. Johnson, Claire sent her proof of her husband's activities, bank transactions that showed his spending on other women, messages from his phone, secured through cybersecurity techniques, and photos showing him with another woman at a hotel. This evidence shattered any remaining doubts Mrs. Johnson had about leaving. Finally, Claire arranged for a safe house. She ensured that Mrs. Johnson and her children could move quietly, with no trace for Mr. Johnson to follow. She also enrolled Mrs. Johnson in a 3-month digital marketing course, promising to cover all expenses while she learned a skill that could help her become financially independent. The move was swift. With Toby's help, Mrs. Johnson packed their essentials and left while Mr. Johnson was away on a business trip. Claire's network ensured that they had everything they needed, from food to security. As Claire watched the family settle into their new life, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This case wasn't just about saving a marriage or exposing infidelity. It was about giving someone the courage and means to start over. Claire sat by her desk, the soft glow of her laptop lighting the room. It had been a long day, but she couldn't help reflecting on how far she had come. What started as a simple act of helping her aunt rekindle love in her marriage had now turned into something much bigger than she ever imagined. She thought about the countless women she had helped over the years, women who had been on the brink of giving up but found hope again. She thought about Toby, the 15-year-old boy who reached out to her not to save a marriage but to save his family. That case had changed everything for Claire. It had opened her eyes to the complexity of relationships and the different kinds of pain people endured. She leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling, her thoughts racing. Marriage isn't black and white, she whispered to herself. It's not always something that can be fixed. And that's okay. Sometimes the best thing you can do is let go. Divorce isn't a failure. It's a chance to start over, to rebuild, to live a life free from pain. She sat forward, typing her thoughts into a journal she had kept since the beginning of her journey. It's one life. You have one life to live, and it is your duty to make sure it is your best life. You cannot manage people. You cannot manage marriage. You can't stay in a toxic relationship just to be married. As the words appeared on the screen, Claire felt a surge of purpose. She realized that her work was no longer just about saving marriages. It was about helping people find peace, whether that meant staying together or walking away. The impact of her work was undeniable. She had seen women leave toxic partners and rebuild their lives. She had witnessed couples fall in love with each other again after years of distance. And now, she was helping people like Toby's mom, who needed more than advice. They needed a lifeline. Claire's thoughts shifted to the future. She knew she couldn't do this alone forever. The cases were becoming more complex, and the demand for her help was growing. If she was going to reach more people, she needed a team. But how could she build a team without risking her anonymity? This question lingered in her mind, adding a layer of tension to her growing mission. Her laptop pinged, pulling her attention to a new message on her blog. It was from a woman named Amaka, who wrote about her struggles to leave an abusive husband. Amaka's story was all too familiar. Financial dependence, fear for her children, and a community that turned a blind eye. Claire's heart ached as she read the words, knowing there were so many more people like Amaka who needed her help. As Claire prepared to respond, she glanced at her journal again. Her own words stared back at her, reminding her of why she started this journey in the first place. You have one life. Make it your best life. As Claire read the new messages flooding her blog, she felt a mix of pride and overwhelm. The cases were piling up faster than she could handle. Every story tugged at her heart, but she knew she couldn't do it all alone anymore. It was time to take the next step. It was time to build a team. Claire spent the evening going over her journal, reflecting on the 3 major areas her work had grown into: rekindling love for couples, helping individuals leave toxic relationships, and supporting those who needed financial empowerment to walk away. Each area required careful handling and someone passionate enough to take on the challenge. But there was a catch. Claire's identity was a secret, and she planned to keep it that way. Whoever joined her team had to be discreet, professional, and trustworthy. She needed people who were as dedicated to helping others as she was, and who understood the importance of staying in the shadows. Claire started by thinking about the people she already knew. During her university days, she had worked on several group projects with a classmate named Emily. Emily was brilliant, calm under pressure, and had a way of connecting with people that Claire admired. She had also noticed Emily's strong sense of justice, often speaking up for others who couldn't. Claire decided Emily would be perfect to handle cases focused on rekindling love in relationships. Next, Claire thought about her professional PI training abroad. There, she had met a sharp and focused investigator named James. While they hadn't kept in touch much after the course, Claire had followed his work online. James had a reputation for solving complex cases and was passionate about helping victims of toxic relationships. She knew he'd be ideal for helping people navigate divorces and leave abusive situations. For the third role, supporting individuals in financial recovery, Claire turned to someone she had never met in person but had watched from a distance. Charlotte was a digital marketing guru who often posted online about empowering women through tech skills. Claire had been impressed by Charlotte's success stories of helping people start fresh, and she felt Charlotte's skills could bring real value to her team. Finally, Claire decided she needed someone to handle logistics, the backbone of her growing operation. This person would find safe houses, organize training programs, and manage all the moving parts of her cases. After some thought, Claire remembered Daniel, a former classmate who had a knack for organizing events and solving problems. She reached out to him anonymously, explaining the role in detail and offering him the position. Each of these individuals was carefully selected, not just for their skills but for their discretion and integrity. Claire approached them all anonymously, using encrypted messages and secure communication tools to keep her identity hidden. She explained her mission and the importance of staying out of the spotlight. To her relief, each person agreed without hesitation, inspired by the opportunity to help others. As the team came together, Claire felt a sense of relief. For the first time, she wasn't carrying the weight of her mission alone. She could trust her team to handle cases with care and professionalism, while she supervised everything from the background. But building the team wasn't without risk. Every new person increased the chances of her identity being exposed. Claire knew she had to be extra cautious, but she also knew this was the only way to grow and help more people. Claire's new team quickly proved their worth. Each member brought a unique skill set that made handling cases more efficient and impactful. It was no longer just Claire in the shadows, it was a coordinated effort to help people in need. The first case was handled by Emily, who focused on rekindling love in relationships. Emily received a message from a woman named Susan, whose marriage was falling apart due to lack of communication. Susan and her husband, Tom, had grown distant, and Susan was convinced he didn't love her anymore. Emily dove into the details, identifying patterns in their behavior. She suggested small but meaningful changes, like spending time together without distractions and expressing gratitude daily. Over the course of a month, Emily guided Susan through rebuilding trust and affection, and soon the couple found themselves reconnecting like they hadn't in years. The next case fell to James, who specialized in helping individuals leave toxic relationships. James received a plea from a woman named Rachel, who was trying to leave her manipulative boyfriend. The boyfriend had been monitoring Rachel's every move, even tracking her phone. James used his PI training to gather evidence of the boyfriend's behavior and create a plan for Rachel to leave safely. With Claire's cyber expertise, they ensured Rachel's digital footprint was wiped clean, and Emily found a safe house for her to start over. Meanwhile, Charlotte worked on cases involving financial empowerment. Charlotte was contacted by a single mother named Mary, who had recently divorced her abusive husband but was struggling to support her children. Charlotte enrolled Mary in an online graphic design course and helped her secure a freelance job within weeks. Mary's newfound confidence and income gave her the strength to rebuild her life. The logistics of these operations were managed by Daniel. Daniel worked tirelessly to coordinate safe houses, arrange transportation, and manage training programs for Claire's clients. For Rachel's case, he found a secure location within hours and ensured all arrangements were handled discreetly. For Mary, he organized a laptop donation to support her training and work. As the team handled their individual roles, Claire monitored every step from behind the scenes. She provided guidance, ensured anonymity, and stepped in whenever the cases required her specialized skills. One evening, the team gathered online to debrief on their progress. "It's amazing what we've accomplished together," Emily said, her voice filled with pride. "Each case feels like we're truly changing lives." "I agree," Daniel added, "but we have to stay cautious. The more people we help, the more attention we might attract." Claire nodded, her face calm but thoughtful. "We've done incredible work, but Daniel's right. We have to remain invisible. No slip-ups. We're only as strong as our ability to stay in the shadows." Despite the challenges, the team worked seamlessly. Claire's vision had grown into something bigger than she ever imagined, and her team was the key to keeping it alive. Claire had always kept her personal life separate from her work. It was easier that way, less complicated, less risky. But ever since she met Jordan at the cybersecurity conference, her carefully built walls had started to crack. Jordan was persistent but not pushy. He would occasionally message her, asking how she was doing or sharing something he thought she'd find interesting. Claire appreciated his patience, but every time she thought about responding with more than a polite reply, doubt crept in. Letting Jordan in meant exposing a part of herself she had worked so hard to protect. One evening, after a particularly draining day, Claire found herself staring at her phone. Jordan's latest message was simple. "Hey, Claire. I was thinking about our conversation at the conference. You mentioned how much you love solving puzzles. There's a new escape room opening in town. I thought it might be fun to check out. Let me know if you're interested." Claire hesitated. It wasn't that she didn't want to see him. It was the opposite. She wanted to see him too much, and that scared her. But then she thought about everything she had told herself recently. She had one life to live, and maybe it was time to let someone in, even if it felt risky. Why not? She thought as she typed her reply. "Sure, sounds fun. Let me know when." Jordan's response came almost immediately. "Great. How about this Saturday? I'll pick you up at 5. Saturday came faster than Claire expected. She spent the day nervously preparing, second-guessing her outfit and trying to convince herself that this wasn't a big deal. But when Jordan showed up, his warm smile and easygoing nature put her at ease. The escape room was a hit. They worked together seamlessly, solving puzzles and laughing at their mistakes. For a moment, Claire forgot about her secret life. She wasn't the anonymous PI or the woman carrying the weight of other people's problems. She was just Claire, having fun with someone who made her feel seen. Afterward, they grabbed dinner at a cozy restaurant. Over plates of pasta and glasses of wine, Jordan opened up about his life, his work in cybersecurity, his love for travel, and his dream of starting his own tech firm. Claire found herself sharing more than she intended, talking about her passion for helping people and how she loved puzzles because they always had a solution. "You're incredible, you know that?" Jordan said, his eyes sincere. "You have this way of seeing the world. Like every problem has an answer if you look hard enough." Claire blushed, not used to hearing such direct praise. "I guess I just like fixing things," she said with a small smile. As the weeks went by, their relationship deepened. Jordan didn't push her for more than she was ready to give, but his kindness and patience made her feel safe. For the first time in a long time, Claire started to believe that maybe she could have both, a personal life and her mission. But the fear never fully went away. What if Jordan found out the truth about her work? What if letting him in put him in danger? These questions haunted her, even as her feelings for him grew. One night, after another successful mission with her team, Claire found herself staring at her phone again. Jordan had sent her a message earlier that day. "I know you're busy, but I want you to know I'm here for you. Whenever you're ready to talk, I'm ready to listen." Claire's heart ached as she read his words. She wanted to tell him everything, but the risk felt too great. For now, all she could do was hope that when the time came, he would understand. For months, Claire and her team had been operating smoothly, each case building their reputation as the invisible force helping people rebuild their lives. But not everyone was grateful for their work. Among the angry ex-partners and abusive spouses Claire had thwarted, one man stood out. A calculating and dangerous adversary named Victor. Victor had lost control over his wife, Sandra, after Claire and her team intervened. Sandra had escaped with evidence of his financial and emotional abuse, securing a clean break. But Victor wasn't just another angry ex. He was tech-savvy, resourceful, and obsessed with revenge. He had made it his mission to unmask the shadowy figure behind the organization that had ruined his life. Victor started by creating fake cases. The first one came in as a desperate plea from a woman claiming to be trapped in an emotionally abusive relationship. Claire assigned Emily to handle it. As Emily worked through the details, something felt off. The client's responses were vague, and the story seemed too perfect, almost rehearsed. But without concrete proof of deceit, Emily pressed on, collecting what she could. Meanwhile, Victor was digging. He monitored the team's communication, probing for weaknesses in their encrypted systems. He planted trackers in emails and tried to follow digital breadcrumbs. But Claire and her team were prepared. Their systems flagged suspicious activity, alerting Claire to the potential threat. The second fake case came through Charlotte's inbox. This time, it was a man claiming he wanted to leave his toxic marriage, but needed help collecting evidence against his wife. Charlotte, always thorough, began her investigation. She noticed inconsistencies in his story, details that didn't align with his supposed timeline. When she tried to cross-check his information, she found dead ends. Claire reviewed the case and confirmed their suspicions. This wasn't a genuine client. Whoever this is, they're trying to find us, Claire told the team during a late-night briefing. They're tech-savvy and they're getting close. We need to tighten our protocols. The team ramped up their defenses, but Victor wasn't done. The third case came directly to Claire, a woman claiming her husband was abusive and threatening her. The details were chillingly real, but Claire's instincts told her something was wrong. She instructed James to investigate further. He discovered that the wife didn't exist. The name and address provided were fabricated, and the photos sent as evidence were stock images. Victor, frustrated by his inability to penetrate their systems, escalated his efforts. He planted malware in one of the emails, attempting to breach Claire's network. But Claire's cybersecurity expertise paid off. She detected the intrusion immediately and launched a countermeasure, wiping out the malware and tracing it back to Victor's location. The confrontation came to a head when Victor sent a direct message. "I know who you are. It's only a matter of time." Claire stared at the message, her heart racing. For the first time, her anonymity felt truly at risk. But she refused to let fear control her. Instead, she and her team devised a plan to neutralize Victor's threat. Using her advanced skills, Claire created a false trail, leading Victor to believe he had uncovered their headquarters in an entirely different city. She planted convincing evidence, documents, communication logs, and even dummy bank accounts. When Victor arrived at the location, he found nothing but an empty office building. The trap was set. Claire used the opportunity to collect information on Victor, ensuring he couldn't launch another attack. As the dust settled, Claire and her team regrouped. "This was too close," Claire admitted. "But we handled it, and we'll be ready if it happens again." Victor, humiliated and defeated, disappeared from their radar. But Claire knew this wasn't the end. The incident had reinforced the importance of staying vigilant and reminded her that the work they did wasn't without risks. The dust had barely settled from the last attempt to uncover Claire's secret. The team had just outsmarted a tech-savvy man trying to trick them into revealing their identities. But before they could fully relax, another threat was already brewing, this one more calculated and dangerous. Mark Peterson was no ordinary person. He was a professional private investigator with years of experience. For a long time, Mark had been the go-to PI in Abuja. His sharp instincts and high-profile cases had earned him a solid reputation. But things had changed since Claire's organization started making waves. Clients who once sought Mark's services now turned to the mysterious marriage fixer. At first, Mark dismissed it as a passing trend. But as the months went by, he noticed more and more clients choosing Claire's discreet help over his established firm. His ego bruised and his business affected, Mark decided it was time to take action. He made it his mission to uncover who was behind the organization that had taken the spotlight from him. Mark was careful. Unlike the previous man who tried to track Claire's team, Mark didn't rush. He studied every detail he could find about the cases they had handled. He paid attention to how the organization worked, noticing patterns in how cases were resolved. It didn't take long for him to realize something important. This wasn't just one person. There are at least 3 different people working on these cases. Mark muttered to himself as he read through the fake cases he had sent. He had been testing them, pretending to be a client and carefully analyzing the responses. The tone and style of the replies varied, confirming his suspicion. But figuring out there was a team wasn't enough for Mark. He wanted to know who they were, and, more importantly, who was leading them. Mark's first plan was to trick them into giving themselves away. He created fake cases and sent them through their blog, each one crafted to seem real. In one case, he pretended to be a single mother in an abusive relationship. In another, he claimed to be a wife trying to save her marriage. He paid close attention to the replies, hoping for a slip-up. But Claire's team was too careful. They flagged his cases as suspicious, and Claire herself monitored them closely. Still, Mark refused to give up. If he couldn't get them to make a mistake, he would try something else. His next move was to offer money. Lots of it. Mark sent anonymous messages to each team member, offering them more money than they had ever seen if they would reveal how the organization worked. To Emily, he wrote, "You're clearly talented. I'm willing to pay you 10 times your salary to share some details about how your team operates. No one has to know." Emily read the message and felt a wave of anger. This isn't about money, she thought. She forwarded the message to Claire and deleted it without replying. Mark tried again with Charlotte. This time, the offer was even bigger. "Imagine what you could do with this money. You deserve it for all the hard work you've done." Charlotte raised an eyebrow as she read the message. "Nice try," she muttered, sending it to Claire before blocking the sender. Mark's final attempt was aimed at Daniel. His tone was almost pleading. "This isn't about betrayal. It's about recognizing your value. You could change your life with this money." Daniel stared at the offer for a moment, then shook his head. "You don't know who you're dealing with," he said quietly as he forwarded the message to Claire. Unbeknownst to the team, Claire had been watching everything unfold. She had stayed silent, wanting to see how her team would handle the situation. Their loyalty reassured her, but she knew Mark wasn't done. Mark, frustrated by his failed attempts, decided to take things a step further. He tried to track their locations using every tool and trick he had learned over his long career. He thought he was closer than anyone had ever been. But Claire's cybersecurity measures were too strong. Instead of finding the team's real locations, Mark was led to a decoy office. When he arrived, he found nothing but an empty room and a note taped to the door. "Better luck next time." Mark's jaw tightened as he crumpled the note in his fist. He wasn't used to losing, and this loss stung more than most. But even he had to admit, whoever was behind this organization was playing a game he couldn't win. For Claire and her team, Mark's attempts were a reminder of the risks they faced. But they also proved something important. Their trust in each other was unshakable. Claire had reached a point where she knew she had to take a big step. Her life had always been about keeping secrets, but now, with everything she had built, it was time to trust the people closest to her. Over the past months, her relationship with Jordan had become serious. He had been a constant support, and now they were engaged. But Claire couldn't move forward without telling him the truth about her work. One evening, after dinner, Claire sat across from Jordan, holding his hand. "There's something I need to tell you," she began. Jordan's eyes softened. "What is it?" Claire took a deep breath and told him everything. She explained her work, the risks, and the lives she and her team had changed. She told him why she had kept it a secret for so long. But now, she wanted to share it with him. When she finished, Jordan smiled and squeezed her hand. "Claire, I already knew you were amazing. But this is incredible. I'm so proud of you." Claire felt tears in her eyes, but they were happy tears. "You're not upset?" she asked. "Upset?" Jordan shook his head. "No, I love you even more for the work you're doing. But are you sure you're safe?" Claire smiled and nodded. "I have an amazing team. And speaking of them, I think it's time they meet each other too." A week later, Claire and her team met in person for the first time. She had arranged for a private space where they could talk freely. Emily, Charlotte, Daniel, and James walked in, looking curious but excited. "Thank you all for coming," Claire began, her voice steady. "We've been through so much together, and I couldn't have done any of this without you. You've shown trust, loyalty, and dedication. And now I think it's time we take the next step as a team." She paused and looked at them, her heart full of gratitude. "Today, I want us to truly meet each other. No more guessing or staying in the shadows. We've earned this trust." With that, Claire removed her scarf, revealing her face. The team stared for a moment, then smiled warmly. "It's great to finally meet you, Claire," Emily said with a grin. One by one, the team introduced themselves, sharing their real names and stories. The room buzzed with laughter and relief as they connected on a deeper level. At the end of the meeting, Claire introduced Jordan. "This is Jordan," she said proudly. "He's been my rock through all of this." Jordan shook hands with each of them, his respect for their work clear. "You're an incredible group of people," he said. Thank you for supporting Claire and for everything you've done." As the meeting wrapped up, Claire felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had trusted her team, and they had trusted her in return. And now, she had Jordan by her side to share in her mission and her future. Before they left, Jordan pulled Claire close. "You've built something amazing," he said softly. Then, in front of the team, he kissed her gently, sealing their bond. The room erupted into cheers and laughter, and Claire couldn't help but smile. For the first time, she felt truly at peace, surrounded by the people who mattered most. As she looked around the room, she thought about how far they had come and how much more they could do together. Claire knew this was just the beginning, but for now, she allowed herself to enjoy the moment, hoping for the best as they moved forward. If you loved this story and want to see more, hit that subscribe button and join our community for even more amazing tales. Tell us in the comments who your favorite character is.